Délise is a writer, theatre artist and producer. They performed at the United Nations, the Schoenberg Centre and the Pulitzer Centre. Their work has been featured in publications including Afropunk, Vagabond City and Huffington Post. Give it up for your first performer for this evening. It's Jay.
Oh, she said, don't touch the mic, and I touched it. So on both sides of my family, we are shaped like retired bodybuilders. And I believe this is not by chance. And I don't know much about my father's side because he's about as good at being a father as I am at being attracted to men, which is to say not at all. But the women on my mother's side are all born with loud mouths and even louder opinions, so it would only make sense that we should look like we can fight. The secret is almost none of us can. My mother and I lived in Greenville, North Carolina for most of my early years in number 5, a townhouse with a wall-to-wall beige carpet, a kitchen we barely cooked in, and luckily many surfaces for me to climb on. My mother always tells stories about how no matter what she did, she could not stop me from climbing. Since my first birthday, when I had apparently decided to just get up and walk, big reveals and carefully curated moments of excellence are integral to my personhood. Nothing has changed. I was a child with a thirst for death-defying stunts, so she put me in gymnastics. And in the beginning, we tried everything. Mommy and me and tumble tots. I even think the gym I went to had a trapeze. But nothing was long enough for me, and I never wanted to leave. So when we moved to New Jersey to live with my grandfather, we found a club with a prerequisite to the competitive team for 5- and 6-year-olds, so I was sold. Pre-team, or as USA Gymnastics calls it, the Developmental Introductory Non-Competitive Training Program. It's a program that consists of 3 levels of training where gymnasts must build a solid foundation of basic skills to help them safely advance to the competition team. So with my thirst for danger, bodybuilder physique, and a mother who just wanted to take phone calls without a child jumping on her back, I officially started my training. This particular gym was well known for gymnastics, and they produce many wonderful gymnasts, which I only found out later when I did not become one of them. And their style of training would make the Marines look like Weenie Hut Juniors. While the training took some getting used to, because one could argue that making 6-year-olds lift 5- and 10-pound weights and climb stairs on their hands and hold splits for what seemed like hours might elicit some trepidation. What I never got used to was the coaching. I started school pretty young, skipped some levels of early learning, and I was and still am quite short. So naturally, I was the youngest and smallest in the gym, kind of an easy target. What people don't tell you when you sign up for gymnastics is that in many gyms, you could be introducing them to their first ever bully, their coach. In my gym, coaches screamed in our faces and called us names and pinched and hit and kicked and slapped and degraded our bodies and subjected us to extreme levels of physical conditioning, all in the name of gymnastics. For a lot of other kids at my gym, this was normal tough love and simply a part of playing a sport, but for me, it was devastating. My mother worked a lot, and so most of my interactions with adults, even at school, were fraught with this abuse. One coach in particular who had it out for me was a man who we'll call EJ. He absolutely could not stand me. He called me dum-dum and stepped on me while I was in splits. There was even one time where he tricked me into getting into the foam pit so that my teammates could flip a mat on top of me and jump on it. But the worst part was the conditioning. It was his favorite punishment. And so while my teammates were collecting skill cards and tumbling with the big kids and having pizza parties, I was conditioning. My friends were trying on their Team Leos, and I was doing ab workouts in the corner by the garbage can. There was even one stretch of time where I climbed the rope 100 times. I was largely left to my own devices, so I learned to set up my own mats and conditioning stations. So just imagine me, the little gymnast that could, lugging mats 5 times my body weight and 8 inches thick to delicately place them under a rope so that when my arms inevitably gave out, I had a soft place to land. But what my coach did not realize in his torment of me was that I was becoming Superwoman. My mother even once caught me moving my bed, mattress and bed frame, to a different side of the room for a new look. Interior design has always been my passion. I was like 6. But all the conditioning I was doing started to put me further and further ahead of the other kids, which the suburban white moms were having none of. So they would kick me off events and make me condition even more, but I never gave up. So after years of rope climbs and pull-ups, I qualified for the state championships. I was and still am overjoyed. As a kid, my only wish was to go to the Olympics, and so qualifying for the state championships was the first step in a long road to that gold medal. And that was my light at the end of the tunnel. And guess what? I did indeed win, thank you. I was New Jersey's state vault champion, and absolutely everyone was and still is going to hear about it. But when we got back, EJ and my mother did indeed have a conversation. And he was moving to Florida within a month. Of course, my relatively short time as a gymnast was not without more of this kind of treatment, but my time on pre-team taught me a very valuable lesson about adults. They are stupid. And while there are some adults, me, who are not who are not goblins of anger and insecurity and malicious intent, there will always be someone with more power than you who is insecure about maintaining it. I learned that the biggest part of growing up was knowing when to keep your eyes on your own paper, and that no matter what life throws at you, you will always have you in your corner by the trash can doing ab exercises. And I don't make any excuses for anything the adults in my life did, but I will always advocate for the rights of children, as they are one of the most oppressed classes of people. But kids are smart, and at that point in a person's life, they are the most hopeful they will ever be. And so when my 20s decides to beat my ass like one would expect, I remember that little 6-year-old, She-Hulk, crushing giants and living life one climb at a time. Thank you.